God bless America. Hello, everybody. I am the Talk Radio Protege. This is the Protege program. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll get right into the news, and then I've got a kind of announcement about tomorrow's video. So let us get right into it. Yesterday, Trump signed an executive order to stop family separations at the border. This was reported on by Fox News about 22 hours ago. And within the hour, according to Google, Fox News had published a subsequent story titled "Democrats Slam Trump's Executive Order for Detaining Families Indefinitely." We're going to look at at that same story as part of our video today. We're going to look at why they're saying that is. Now, if I had just expanded my research net a little bit, I would have caught this. But at the same time, I wouldn't have had a "what did I just say" moment if I had expanded that research net. So yesterday I published that video, not having seen the tweets that we're going to look at today, not having seen the Democrat reaction to the president's executive order, and yet I was still able to say they're going to reject it. They're not going to accept this as a real solution. They're going to moan and complain about something new. I just didn't know what it was yet. Turns out that's the quote-unquote indefinite detention that is not actually indefinite. It's potentially indefinite, is the truth of the matter. Well, we'll talk about that when we get to it, but let's look at some of this. Democrats expressed concerns Wednesday about President Trump's executive order, which will allow parents who have crossed the U.S. border illegally to remain with their children. The move, some Democrats argued, simply detains illegal immigrants indefinitely. How would that be the case? Let's move on. The order Trump signed allows children to stay in detention with their parents for an extended period of time. It does not, however, extend the zero-tolerance policy that criminally prosecutes adults entering the country without proper documentation. Trump's order came after he heard other officials repeatedly say only Congress had the power to stop children and their parents from being separated. Now, that's true and not true. Let's talk about why that's true. So the tradition of the executive branch over the last 100 years or so, going back, we've talked about when this goes back. We've talked a little bit about when this changed, but it nearly goes back to the founding of the country, that the proper tradition of the executive branch has been to enforce the laws on the books, whether or not the president agrees with the constitutionality of the law. The executive branch is to enforce the law, period. Now, there have been presidents that have broken with that tradition. For instance, Andrew Jackson broke with that tradition when the Supreme Court said you're not allowed to pick up and force these Native Americans to move across the country just because you don't want them there. Jackson famously said, the Chief Justice has made his decision, now let him enforce it. And that's an example of what something bad that can come about of presidents deciding whether or not they think a law is constitutional. But on the flip side of the coin, you have laws that are clearly unconstitutional, or laws that might not be laws that are clearly not constitutional being enforced by a president because they're the laws on the books, and we need to enforce the laws on the books. Now, this means that if there is a law on the books, it is incumbent upon the president to enforce that law, whether or not he agrees with the effects of the law. And that's some of what was happening in this issue. I would not be surprised at all if President Trump thought that it was not the best policy to separate children from their families. But I would assume that he took a look at the laws and he said, this is what the law says, so we need to enforce it. That's going to mean that this is going to happen. It's not good, but it's the law. It must be enforced. And so that's why he was saying that Congress had the power to stop, only Congress had the power to stop this, because it's a law on the books that says that this must happen. Essentially, it says that children are not allowed to be detained in a detention facility for more than so many days. So when that day number hits, if you're going to continue to detain the families, you must now separate the children. We've talked about this. So what the president did was essentially took the Obama route on enforcing the law. He said, this law has effects that I don't like, so I'm not going to enforce it. When it came to Obama enforcing this same law, instead of detaining the parents and separating the children, he enacted catch and release, which was we caught these people entering the country illegally. They've got children with them. All right, we can't detain the children. Let them all go. That was the Obama policy. The Obama policy was to not enforce the law whatsoever. The Trump policy is to enforce every letter of the law. And now he signed this executive order that basically directs ICE to ignore a portion of the law over all the whining and moaning from the left. Senator Bernie Sanders tweeted Wednesday night, shortly after the signing of the executive order by the president, that the order merely replaces one inhumane act with another. Trump's executive order merely replaces one inhumane act with another. In response to the overwhelming public outrage at his policy of tearing children away from their parents at the border, the administration thinks the appropriate response is to indefinitely detain families. Now, what are you supposed to think when you read that tweet? Mull it over, leave a comment, and we'll come back to it after we've looked at some of these other tweets that come from other senators. We're gonna skip that tweet. We're gonna go to this tweet from Dianne Feinstein. It's extremely troubling that the president's executive order would require immigrant families with children to be detained indefinitely. The order appears to be the next step in the Trump administration's larger agenda to eliminate basic protections for asylum seekers. Now, what protections do asylum seekers have, or what protections are they entitled to under the Constitution? If you answered none, you are correct. Under the Constitution, only American citizens are entitled to any of the Constitution's protections. If that sounds scary to you, then you should be thankful that the United States is a benevolent country. Because we are a benevolent country, we take the basic, what we think of as the basic human rights of aliens into consideration when we process them for criminal acts, for entry into the country, for anything like that. We treat aliens as humans because we believe it is right to treat all humans like humans. That's why we confer upon alien nationals rights and protections. What Senator Feinstein seems to not understand is that this is a privilege of these aliens, not a right. This from Kamala Harris. The executive order in no way deals with reuniting the 2,300 children who have been torn away from their parents and remain separated. When will they see their parents again? They must be reunited immediately. I agree, Kamala Harris. The children should be reunited immediately. They should be picked up now that this executive order has been rescinded. They should be picked up from wherever they're being harbored and detained with their parents. But I don't think you're going to like that very much as a solution. Let's look at some other tweets. We've got some from Marco Rubio here. Let's go ahead and see what Rubio tweeted. Some Democrats now even using the disingenuous indefinite detention term. They know full well that those who unlawfully enter the U.S. are not held indefinitely. They are entitled to a due process hearing, and our new bill hires more judges to speed up that process. Just heard Senate colleagues on the floor saying U.S. detains immigrant children indefinitely and indiscriminately. That is just patently false. They are entitled to a due process hearing, so not indefinite, and only applies to those who enter the U.S. unlawfully, so it is not indiscriminate. Now, it's only indefinite and indiscriminate, according to the Democrats, insofar as the Democrats believe that all immigrants are exactly the same. If you are an immigrant, you are exactly the same as any other immigrant. This means you have brown skin, you come from Latin America, you are running from violence in your home country, and you are poor and downtrodden, and you are a good person. That's why they can call it indiscriminate. It's indefinite because the law on the books says that while you are processing these asylum seekers, or the illegal immigrants that reach the border and then claim that they're seeking asylum, you can hold them for as long as it takes to process their asylum application. That is why it is technically indefinite. It's not indefinite in the sense of infinite. It's indefinite in the sense of undefined. It's an undefined amount of time because the amount of time is defined as how long it takes to process your asylum application. So it's still not indefinite. It's indefinite in terms of the exact number of days. If someone were to ask, how long am I going to be detained here? We will not. The United States government is not going to tell you this many days. They're going to tell you as long as it takes to process your asylum application. And that is a undefined period of time. It's kind of defined and undefined. It's not defined in terms of a discrete number, but it is defined in terms of a specific end date. That end date is when your asylum application is processed. Now, that's going to do it for this video, but it's time for the announcement. If you'd like to click away, go ahead, leave a like, hit subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications before you go. I'd really appreciate that. But I have something to tell you about tomorrow's video. Tomorrow's video is going to be very, very long because we're going to read through a recent Supreme Court decision. That Supreme Court decision pertains to internet sales tax. The Supreme Court just ruled that states are now allowed to collect sales taxes from all companies that do internet transactions to people in your state. So, for instance, if you live in Montana and you're buying from a company based out of Massachusetts, and the company in Massachusetts doesn't have a physical presence in Montana, you now are going to be charged sales tax because Montana is allowed to levy sales taxes against the business that is located in Massachusetts. Whether you think that's right or wrong, I'm not an expert in sales taxes. It seems that the conservatives on the court voted in favor of the states, and the liberals on the court voted in favor of the businesses. So we're going to look at the decision, we're going to look at the opinions, and we're just going to read through these things. I've talked about some Supreme Court decisions in the past, and I want to actually read through a Supreme Court decision. It's going to take a while because it was written by Justice Kennedy. I hate every single opinion that Justice Kennedy has written because it's excessively wordy and excessively long. I also, so far as I've been following the Supreme Court, like I have been doing for the past nearly year, I hate it when Justice Kennedy gets to write the opinion because he is a judicial activist when he gets to write the opinion. He's very rarely restrained when it comes to his judicial opinion. So we're going to read this opinion. I'm going to record the video. I'm going to upload it and make it public for you tomorrow. And I'm doing that in anticipation of travel delays. I'm going to be traveling tomorrow, and I'm expecting there to be numerous long delays. So I want to get this video uploaded for you. Let me know also if you would be interested in watching a stream of me reading through one of these Supreme Court opinions. Because I think it's going to be so long, I think it would be useful to live stream these readings. Now, I don't have a lot of subscribers at the moment, so it's probably not going to be a very active live stream, but if you are interested, I would like to do that for you. So let me know in the comments if you're interested in seeing that sort of thing. Again, before you go, if you wouldn't mind, leave a like, hit subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications so that you don't miss a single video. I think I went through the spiel. See you tomorrow. Until then, good night, and God bless.